To repel or not to repel? That is the question.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business.
Hey, welcome to another edition of the Pest Geek podcast. This is Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek. Happy Monday to you all. So glad you guys are here this week. I have a very, very cool show today. We're going to be talking about repellents and non-repellents and what to do. All of a sudden, there's a big rave about using non-repellents. I'm going on blogs. I'm going on chat rooms. I'm looking into this, and everybody's talking about going into non-repellents and replacing and discarding completely their repellent products. So, we're going to be getting into this, and we're going to be talking about the pros and cons about doing all this. But if you want to be on our show, you got a question, you got a comment, you got something you want to talk about that's heavy on your heart, and you need to talk to somebody about it, I'm right here listening. Give me a call, 707-395-7378, 24/7. Line is open. You can leave a message. And if we play it on the air, we'll talk about it, about your question, your comment, or anything that you have heavy on your heart that you feel you need to get out. So give me a call. Again, we want to give a special shout out to this week to Mike David Silvas from Riverside, California. He's following us on Facebook. Hey, thanks, man, for following us. Really appreciate that. And also Suburban Pest out of Yonkers, New York, on Twitter, following us. So, hey, if you want to follow us and you want to check out what's going on the Pest Geek Podcast, look up Pest Geek Podcast on Twitter and on Facebook, and also on the web at pestgeekpodcast.com. And you can find us there, and join the conversation, leave a comment, give us a like. Also, we're on iTunes and Stitcher, by the way. And if you'd be so kind, if you like the show and you're on iTunes, you'll give us a rating on iTunes. I would greatly appreciate it. Let us know how we're doing. And we're getting a lot of email from people telling us they really like the podcast and commenting on Facebook and liking our stuff on Twitter. So, hey, join the conversation, man. It's really all about you. So do that. I want to give you a tech tip of the week. I don't know. I'm going to have to change that headline from tech tip of the week to something else because I keep fumbling all over myself on that one. And, but I'm probably going to have to come up with something easier to pronounce. It's bad enough that I do Spanish and English. I'm trying to keep track of everything. So my brain sometimes, shuts down on me. The tech tip of the week is the Magno Grip 3-pocket magnetic nail pouch. If you are doing, a lot of, you carry tools with you like a screwdriver and maybe your flashlight, and then you're doing void treatments and things like that, and you need to remove like the plates. The biggest challenge I used to have when I was removing light plates is that I was standing up and I had to squat down somewhere, find somewhere to lay the plate or put it in my pocket, and then the screw, I had to put it in my pocket or somewhere else. And I kept having trouble with that. And I said, let me look at something. And I was going into the home improvement store, and I saw this little magnetic thing. I said, oh, that's awesome, because it had a big, nice wide pouch. I can stick my screwdrivers in there. I can stick everything I need. And then it has a big, large pouch in the front where I can stick the plate. And then it has a little magnetic thing on the side, a magnetic plate. And you can stick the screw on there. And it's great for doing that kind of service. It leaves your hands free. You can just go in, reach out, get the plate, put it on, then take the screw and put it on there. You don't have to be digging for it. And your screwdriver is right there in the pouch. It's a great little tool. I use it every time I do a void treatment for that reason. They're like $16. You can get them at any large home improvement store. I got a link to it on the podcast. So if you're listening to the podcast, you can go to the website and get a link to it, or pull up the show notes on iTunes, and there's a link there for the Magno Grip 3-pocket magnetic nail pouch. And I don't know about you. I don't know how your weekend was. Mine was pretty exciting. It was my stepdaughter's 11th birthday party. And we went ahead and celebrated that with all her little school friends and the family. And my wife was a nervous wreck because she hates planning. She hates organizing. She is not very creative. And so she struggles with all this creative stuff. But yet she wants to do it because it's her daughter. So she feels she needs to be the one that's doing all the creative work and everything. And she was running around like a chicken with her head cut off, all Saturday, actually Sunday and Saturday. We were preparing all the little trinkets and the bags and the little gifts and all that kind of stuff. But this is stuff I love to do, and I'm great at organizing, and I'm great at hosting and stuff. And I just said, why don't you just let me do it for you? And she's like, no, I got to do it because, I can't put that on you, and it's my daughter. And I'm like, it's no big deal, really. I mean, this is stuff that I enjoy doing, and I'd probably get it all done a whole lot more faster and more efficiently than she would. But anyway, we did have a good party. She had fun with all her little friends from school. And it was a real trip. And I don't know what to do with my daughter. She just started kindergarten. And let me tell you, my daughter, the problem with my daughter is she doesn't shut up. She talks. She even talks to herself. She's like me. She can get a conversation out of a 2x4 in the wall. And I'm like, I get calls literally 3 times a week where she is just talking and the teacher is telling her to be quiet. And then sometimes she just sits there in her desk and talks to herself. And so it's what do you do with a talkative child? Because I was talkative, but I don't ever remember my mother having complaints about me all the time. So if you've got any tips on how to deal with a talkative child, please call me. Let me know. I like to help. I mean, I like to get the help because I don't know what to do with her. But other than that, hey, everything is good. Really excited to be here. And like I said, I wanted to talk to you about non-repellents because all of a sudden these things are all the rave. And a lot of people are looking to replace their, I've been listening to people about, using repellents and non-repellents. They're like, well, everybody's moving to quarterly services and they want stuff that knocks things out and not having to be there all the time without callbacks. And non-repellents are offering, a better control than repellents for a lot of applications. But it's not an issue of what we keep looking for in the industry is a magic bullet. And what we got to realize is that doesn't exist. The reasoning is that, well, of course, competition and pest control prices have stayed stagnant. In some areas, they're falling. So people are looking for ways to do things quicker, faster, because they're not able to charge anymore. I mean, prices haven't gone really up in many years for their stagnant. The average still price around the country for general household pests is $300 and something a year. So it's not like there's a whole lot of investing people want to do in GHP because there's just not a whole lot of money in it. And, the money is in ornamentals, is in termite, is in bed bugs, is doing something else, but just general household pests and stuff. So people are looking to cut costs. I'm looking at things that are happening across the country in the area of even commercial pest control, where a lot of companies, a lot of building managers, and they're wanting to do this themselves to cut that price out of that, $2, $3, $4, $10,000 a year cost of doing pest control. And they're wanting to do it themselves. And this is becoming a huge problem. So, and people are starting to turn to these non-repellent products because somehow they're magic bullets, but they're not. And the reasoning is, I was just talking to a tech this past week here locally, and strictly a spray company, sprays everything, sprays lawns, sprays interiors. That's it. It's spray. And I said, you're not in complaining he's not getting control of these German roaches. He's not getting, and I said, you never will with just a spray program. You got to switch over to baits and different tactics and different techniques. And I was consulting him on this, very frustrated. But I said, look, you can't just go in, charge $35 and spray everything and then hope to get control. It's not going to work. And you have to really, one, you have to going to raise your prices. And number two, you really have to do a lot more work than you're doing. This is just not the way it's done. And that's been, a constant theme that I have to deal constantly with people who are asking me, that they're looking for a product that's going to knock it out, and it just doesn't exist. With non-repellents, there's a lot of a training curve that's going to happen with the client. Because here's how basically non-repellents work. Non-repellents not only are not detectable by the insect, but the way they work is by not disrupting the pheromone trails and allowing the insects to continue to travel through them, get contaminated, carry it on their body, take it back to the nesting sites, and then destroying the nesting either through a stomach poison or through some type of neurotoxin that's on the skin, on their exoskeleton. Some way they get to transport it back and eliminating the colony. So what happens is all of a sudden you switch to these non-repellents, right? And you start spraying these homes and they have ant trails everywhere. Customer calls you back in, a day, 2 hours and says, you were just here, you sprayed, and there's still these ants all over the place. You did nothing. And now you have to go and explain to the client that the way these products work, this new product that you decided to switch to, and he's like, well, no, I'm skeptical. I don't think it's going to work. It's not, it's been 2 days. It's been 3 days, and there's still trails of ants everywhere. And now the customer gets on this trip that he's going to make sure that, you're doing your job. So he starts inspecting everything. He starts looking everywhere for one ant walking around on a paver because he was used to one thing and now he sees another. That immediate change is going to cause a lot of problems. You have to do a lot of educating with your customers, knowing that, listen, we're going to apply this product and they're going to be able to walk all over it and they're not going to die right away. All the other thing that will happen is like with American cockroaches. You spray a pyrethroid with American cockroaches and you're going to start finding them, belly side up with their feet up everywhere. And customers get used to that. Like somehow that is very good and appealing to a lot of guys, that we find roaches with their legs up and then you have to pick them up and throw them out. To women, that is totally disgusting. And this is why I prefer baiting and all that, because they never get to see these bugs with their feet up. But I walk into a building, a commercial building or a property that says, oh, we haven't sprayed nothing. And I'm finding all these roaches that are, with their feet up. And I'm like, no, somebody's spraying a pyrethroid here because, inside, and I need to know what it is. So that's, the kind of thing that there is going to be change in the way these products behave. Some you can apply indoors, some you can't. So you have to be able to prepare yourself. Then my second question is, anytime somebody tells me, well, I'm looking for a product that I can apply indoors that's a non-repellent because I want to get into baiting. My first question is, why do you feel that you have to always spray everything indoors? And usually they look at me like they have no answer. It's something that they got conditioned to doing. The customer is conditioned to doing it, and they do it every single time because that's the standard. The same conversation I was having, I said, you want to get into baits, but why do you feel you have to spray? You're doing double the work. We were just at a house that we monitored, really huge German roach infestation. We followed our protocol. Same thing. Aren't you going to spray? I actually had the lady throw out the spray bottle of the insecticide spray she was using. I said, you're going to mess up my work if you start spraying this because you're going to want an instant result, and this is going to take about 30 days. I got to come back in 30 days, do a follow-up service, and then we're going to monitor every 3 months. She was very skeptical because I didn't spray the whole house again. And I said, watch. We did it. Came back. I asked her, how do you feel from the time that we did the service to now that your roaches have dropped? I said, I only see one here and there. I'm even talking about roaches were crawling out of everywhere in that kitchen. I mean, it was just a nightmare how bad the infestation was. It was a severe infestation. She feels it's a 99% reduction and only sees one here and there after 30 days. So I asked the technician, why do you feel that you need to spray for a product this when it works? You got to choose between one or another. You don't always have to spray something. And that's my point is, and that's how you end up with a lot of overuse of chemical, a lot of cost of goods that gets wasted for no reason. You have to evaluate whether you need to or not. You're the professional here. You're the one that sets the protocols, not the client, not the industry. And if you don't have to, in a lot of cases you do. In a lot of cases, you might have to, depending on where you are in the country and what pest problems are you having. But for a lot of times you don't. So you have to evaluate whether I need to use a repellent or I need to use a non-repellent. And I don't focus on whether it's repellent or not repellent. I focus on what's the insect, what's the mode of action, how does this product work on the insect, and then decide what is the best course of action to take, regardless of whether it's a repellent or a non-repellent. The way I use integrated pest management and I use my chemicals is that if the insect or the site or what I'm trying to accomplish, a repellent product is going to work better, I'll go with a repellent product. If a bait product is going to work better, I'm going to go with a bait product. If sealing is going to work better and solve the problem, I'll go with sealing. You see, it's not an issue of which product should I use. Is it this or that? It's the question is, what is the best application? What's going to work best? And that's part of integrated pest management, is understanding the insect first, the biology, and what's going to work best. I was reading it was a Google Plus site for professional pest control, and everybody's asking questions. And, I want a product that I can apply twice a year and it's going to solve the pest problem. And my question was, why? Well, they're getting this commercial account. The commercial account is a building, a residential building that just got built. They don't want to pay what it really costs to do pest control, so they want to lower their costs. And the way they figured they would lower their costs is limit pest control to twice a year. I mean, talk about the where the market is going and where people's head is, where these managers are dictating protocol to the pest control companies without having any clue of what it's really going to take to control that problem. And this is where this is becoming a problem. So they wanted a product that says, look, there is no residual on the market. You're going to get a 6-month residual. It doesn't exist. I got into all the degradation. At the end of the day, I understand, but if I want the account, I got to do this. So one person came out and said, just use a non-repellent and that'll solve all your problems. And I said, that's asinine. That's absurd. There is no such thing. You're still going to have problems and you're still going to have issues. You're not going to get a non-repellent to knock out because you do it on a perimeter treatment. It's going to knock out every single problem. You still have drain issues. You still have other issues of pests being brought in an apartment building. You're not going to get control. And you have the illusion of control. And a lot of people thinking, well, I went to this non-repellent, it's going to knock out the colonies, therefore I'm not going to have any other issues. And that could be further from the truth. So let's look at what these things do and what they are. There's about 4 different classes on the market of non-repellents. The most popular one that got everything going for a lot of people is Termidor, which is a class 2 GABA-gated chloride channel blocker. All right. Without getting into all the technical terms of what that does, because to a lot of people, it really doesn't matter how it works on the insect. I mean, to try to get into every one of these and how it actually works inside the insect, what you really need to know is what's the application, knowing that it's a different class and switching up the classes to get control of these insects, and knowing if this class is being effective or not at controlling it. Now, with Termidor, there's so many restrictions. You have a lot of restrictions with Termidor for insect. First of all, you can't use it indoors as a baseboard spray. That's out of the question. You can't use it as a crack and crevice indoor. As a matter of fact, if you use it in a lot of places like for termite and attics, the people have to leave the house. Outside, there's a 1-foot perimeter around the property, a 1-foot band around that property. Limited to they just did some label modification where you can use it more than twice a year, but you have to lower the dosage. So what happens with Termidor is a non-repellent product. It's a class 2. But here's the thing now that you have to start looking at when you're applying a non-repellent. If you use Thermador for exterior perimeter control, you're limited twice a year. I think you can use it 4 times a year, but quarterly, but at a lower dosage, reducing the dosage. And you're going to have a dedicated piece of equipment, a B&G or some other piece of equipment. Now, here's the big challenge. Just because it's a non-repellent, you can't go and add another non-repellent product to that tank and use it, because if you accidentally use that indoors, you have residual. And if somebody does a swab analysis on those baseboards or somewhere and you accidentally confuse that tank, you're into a big problem. This is why a lot of major companies, large pest control companies, don't allow their technicians to use Thermador. There's a specified technician that's allowed to use it, and that's it, because this could happen. All of a sudden you decide to use Alpine and you confuse the tanks and you apply the Alpine indoor and it had a residual from Thermador, you're in big doo-doo. So you can't do it. Second, now you're going to have one for Thermador, one for non-repellents, and one for repellent products. And now you have to carry 3 B&Gs or 3 applicators because you can't mix them. A lot of people are not used to this. If you're in the L&O business, this is standard. You have to do it all the time. I got 4 dedicated piece of equipment in my vehicle because I can't use something that was used for lawns where an herbicide was applied and use that same tank to treat shrubs. So you need to have everything separated, and I have 3 different pieces of equipment that I carry for that reason, because I don't want any damage to my plants because I mixed the wrong piece of equipment. So they're all totally different. They're easy to identify. The lettering isn't going to wipe off, those kind of deals. That's what you need to do. So the only really class 2 is Fipronil. It's the only class 2 that's out there with all those major restrictions. Now, there you get into the class 4s, and those are the neonicotinoids, which are non-repellents. And you have 3 major players. I remember there's 7 total neonics, but the 3 major players is Alpine, OptiGuard, Flex, and Premise that you can use, which Alpine is the dinotefuran, which is known as Safari for the L&O industry. It's very, very water soluble product. So if you're applying it outdoors for perimeter treatment, probably not a good idea. The Alpine is basically very good for indoor, using that. The OptiGuard Flex is the thimethoxam, which is Meridian. If you're in the L&O business, the Meridian wettable granules and Meridian, lawn granules. Very, very good product. I really like that product. It is up there on the price. I mean, the Bentley of all these is Safari, which is the most expensive one to use. I don't like using Safari in South Florida for neonicotinoid treatments for shrubs because, one, is very, very expensive per lineal foot to apply. Second, is highly, highly water soluble, which for our soil, not good. So that's another thing that you need to consider is what soil application do you have? We have sandy soil. So this stuff is not very good for sandy soil. I don't like it. The Meridian is good. It's kind of in the middle of the road, between, the Premise, which is also known as Merit, for the L&O business. And for our soil, I really do like the imidacloprid. I like Merit because, it's the least water soluble of all of them. So you're going to get with like Safari, you're going to get a quick uptake, very quick, but how much of it does it take and how much of it actually leaches? Jury is out on that. So I prefer, based on our soil type here, to use the Merit. And when you're doing soil drenches, you want to stick with one product. You don't want to be using 2 different products. You don't want to be switching between one and the other. There's no need. You're still in the same class. You're not going to reduce the resistance. The resistance is usually created more often with foliar spray. But when you're using it for root drench, you get very little known resistance at this point. So there's nothing to indicate that we're getting a resistance problem with these products. But you get into that class 4 neonicotinoid. Then you have combination products. And there's 2 basically out there right now that are combination. There's another one with that uses the same thing as the OptiGuard Flex, where it has two products. But Transport, let's say Micron is one of them, which uses a combination of a class 3 and a class 4 bifenthrin with acetamiprid, which is a neonicotinoid, and bifenthrin is a pyrethroid. It says it's non-repellent. The thing with bifenthrin is non-odorous, the label. But I try to kill myself on the website trying to find it. It does say it's non-repellent. I just don't know if because the bifenthrin is so low that doesn't create a repellency issue in that situation. We still got to get a clarification from that. And then the other one now is Fuse, which is another combination product. It's not new. It's just a combination product, and it uses two non-repellents, imidacloprid, which is a neonic, and then fipronil, which is the Thermador. And now you can apply this one at that rate. You can apply it more times a year. This one is by Control Solutions that made this product, and it's called Fuse. So you have that one, which is a class 2 and a class 4 mixed together. And then we go down to a class 13, which is the Phantom. Phantom works totally different than the class 4 and the class 2. And it has this huge, giant description that's about 9 words to describe it. But the way it works, it puts the nervous system of the insect in a constant state of excitement. And it produces something similar to muscle cramping. It disables the insect ability to produce energy by disrupting the conversion of energy at the cellular level. It's by BASF, Phantom, and it's a non-repellent. It can be used indoor and outdoors. It's got a 28-day rotation on that chemical, but I wouldn't be using that same product every 28 days. Supposedly it works really, really well for German roach control. And it's very effective as a crack and crevice product for German roach control in food service facilities. So it can be used for that, and it's labeled for that. Then the other one is the Arolon. And Arolon is indoxacarb, which works by blocking with voltage-dependent sodium channel blockers. Similar to what happens with the pyrethroids, in similar in action. It just causes a lot of nervous tremors in the insect, and they cease from feeding at this point. So it's indoxacarb, it's Arolon. Now there's two companies that make the Arolon, Syngenta and also DuPont make that same Arolon product, and that's the way it works. It's indoxacarb. It's used a lot in baits, especially for like fire ant control and things like that. And it's also used in roach baits. So it's a different class altogether. So now you have about 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 classes, 5 classes that you can use in the non-repellent, arena. But understanding that, it's not one of those things where you simply just decide to use it. I would really like to see you using it more in a rotation with pyrethroids. If you're doing an exterior, if you're doing a lawn treatment, there's really no sense in doing that. You can still use a pyrethroid. You can still use a neonic. But to say, well, do you want to be non-repellent on a lawn? I don't think it's really relevant to be non-repellent on a lawn. Now, what I wouldn't do is use the repellent product indoor and then use a repellent product on the perimeter. You end up trapping the pest between the walls, and that's kind of a big problem with a lot of repellent products. If you've got a nesting issue in a wall, and all of a sudden you applied it to the baseboard and then you apply it to the exterior, you trap the insect in there. And they can stay in there for quite a while and still breed and still nest and still feed, cannibalize each other, and do a lot of things. So again, it's understanding the biology of the insect, understanding how the chemical works, and understanding and then deciding which is the best course to take, which is the best option for that insect. So that's how I look at it and how I see it. So, keep an eye on that. Look at it. Look at the different, there's links on this podcast to the different products, the different websites, so you can download the literature from these some of these websites. And I hope, guys, that you have a wonderful week. I hope you go out there, you crush it this week, and get things done, and start getting some real business start popping your way. And I wish you all the best. And as we enter into the end of the year now, and we enter into Christmas and the holidays, things get to be hectic and and nutty, and with everything you've got to plan and do. So just take a step back, relax, try to enjoy the season and enjoy everything that's coming your way this year. Hey man, thanks for listening. Greatly appreciate you being here. I will see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.